So welcome to Capital Raise Readiness. We're going to be talking about today how to get your company ready when you're going to raise capital. So a little bit about me. My name is Todd Serulneck with Lancaster and Hall. One of the reasons why I started this business is when I left the corporate world, a lot of business owners struggled with common things. And of course, from big corporate, they had big corporate problems. But as I've been working for the last 11 years with small business owners like yourselves, what we find is it's similar problems that we see again and again and again. And for these small and medium-sized business owners, it's these insurmountable problems, but we've solved these problems frequently. And so being in Lancaster and Hall allows me to have a lot of impact with my clients and have a lot of success for them. The other reason why I wanted to have my own business is because I decided that I wanted to build the business that I wanted to work for. So many companies, a lot of my clients, they treat their employees like gold, but a lot of my clients don't. And so being able to direct the business and figure out what to me is important from a value system and build that into the business so it can treat its employees the way that I want my employees treated, that means a lot to me. Let's go to the next slide. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you an introduction to the capital raise process in a way that you haven't seen it before from the perspective of the other side of the table. What does it look like from the perspective of that billionaire that you're trying to raise capital from, and what's going through their minds? And this is courtesy of HBO, by the way.
Oh, Peter, you're here. We were supposed to meet 40 minutes ago with the guys from Astrophile about the emergency capital injection.
As we discussed, our North Carolina plant went sideways. So we need 15 million now, or we'll have to shut down.
Have any of you ever eaten at Burger King?
Yes. Why?
Well,
Okay, fine. But what does that have to do?
is it popular among your peers? Is it enjoyed?
People seem to like it. It's okay.
And their selection consists solely of these burgers, of which they are presumably king?
They have other things. Chicken, fish.
I'm sorry, what are we doing here?
This is which one?
The BK double stacker.
Fascinating.
Peter, I know that you are incredibly busy with this, but I made a personal promise to the Astrophile guys that none of their employees would lose their job, which will happen at midnight.
Do you see this?
The Junior Whopper.
No, not the sandwich. This seed atop the breading.
Those are sesame seeds.
A high number of these breadings have sesame seeds on them. Billions of breadings. Sesame seeds. They only grow in certain microclimates.
Peter, I know that you don't want to cause 173 people in North Carolina.
Cicadas.
I told you he's going to handle it.
Mr. Gregory, this is ridiculous.
Sir.
Mr. Gregory, we need an answer, and we need it now.
Yes?
We need money now. And I'm sure that Burger King and sesame seeds and whatever else you've been mumbling about in here all seem lovely to think about, but they have...
Myanmar and Brazil.
No more of this, okay? Are we getting the money or not? Will you please just tell us what the hell is going on?
Amusing coincidence that 2 of the 3 countries that provide the world sesame seeds have such large cicada populations, no? The cicadas of Myanmar emerge every 13 years, while the Brazilian cicadas emerge every 17. Unlike Myanmar and Brazil, Indonesia has no cicada population. I was surprised to see Indonesian sesame seed futures priced so low. I made a purchase. And now, if the shortage spikes the global price even 10%, will profit Evan?
$68 million.
If you wish, I could tap that projected revenue and make you a bridge loan of $15 million, gentlemen. Unless you need more?
No, thank you. Holy shit.
Yes? Happy?
See? I told you he was taking care of it.
And now, would anyone like some BK? Evan was kind enough to go out and get breakfast. It's just sitting here.
So I thought you guys might find that humorous. Maybe it was a little too serious to be funny, but that is actually not as far away from the truth as you might think. Ultimately, capital raise readiness is Lancaster and Hall's process of preparing you and your business for a high stakes, stressful, and dramatic conversation that's in a language you don't understand. And that was actually the takeaway from that video, is what's going on through their head is nothing to do with what you're talking about and how confusing this conversation is. And you can imagine trying to walk in there and be like, I need $15 million. And he's talking about Myanmar and Brazil. And I don't understand the connection. So how do we prepare you for that? So when you're struggling to raise capital, what could be happening? One is, are you looking in the right places? Are you looking for the right type of capital based on what's going on in your business? Are you asking for the right amount of money? And are you wasting your time putting up GoFundMes and no money's coming in? What's happening there? And what do you want to do about it? And so what I'd like you to have, one of the big takeaways from this talk, is being raise ready beats raising fast. So many of my clients got into a situation where they needed the money yesterday. And they didn't anticipate and they didn't prepare, and it creates a massive problem. And then when they try to solve that problem, it creates new problems because they didn't prepare. So I want you to think about that raise ready beats raise fast. If you're in a situation and you're trying to raise capital and you're seeing terms like these: preferred shares, uniform commercial code, cap rates, you need to get a fractional CFO and an attorney in the room so they can sit down with you, read these clauses, and really help you understand, what do these things mean in terms of your capital raise. You're signing a document that your entire business is going to hinge on, and you don't even know what these words mean, and you don't know what these phrases mean when these clauses show up in your docs. So when you see these words, you really need to reach out. I know that a lot of the times you're behind the 8 ball and it's like, well, we either sign this document or we're done. So we sign the document. You got to be really careful. You really need to take just a moment to understand what these mean, or you're really going to be signing yourself up for a world of pain, potentially. Sure, some capital raises are very easy to do. And you can just fill out this application and we'll have your money in a day or two. And it's a very simple situation. Just send us this stuff and your money will show up in your bank account in a day or two. But so many capital raises are much more complicated than you think they are. And it's important to bring in the right professionals. Today we're going to talk about two of the 4 aspects. There's actually a part 2 to this talk because there's so much here to discuss. So today we're going to focus on assessment and strategy and take you through how do you assess your need for capital, and how do you strategize your capital raise. And then in the future, at some point, we can talk about preparation and execution, which is what comes next once you've formulated your strategy. So let's talk about the assessment phase. So here we have a matrix. On our x-axis is the growth rate of your company or your product, and on the y-axis you have the relative market share. And this is a life cycle of a business and or the life cycle of a product in your business. And most businesses go through this life cycle. They start here with a high growth rate, but very negligible market share. And they're a startup. And they go through that phase, and somehow they survive that, and they come over here, and they become from a startup to a rising star. And as a rising star, that growth rate is there, but now they've got market share. And then what the business does is it moves to this quadrant over here, where the growth slows down, but there's significant market share, and we call that the cash cow. Because during this phase, a lot of money's coming in, and a lot of cash is coming in, and this is great. This is a dangerous place to be. And the reason is because a lot of businesses are like, hey, we made it, we're good. And then how do we sock this money away? And they're not being very strategic, they get comfortable. And so for me as a CFO, when I get there, I get very uncomfortable. Because a lot of my clients, they're looking for cash cows. And if they see a business that is making money hand over fist, maybe we should go into that line of business. And you're going to get competitor entry. And these folks are going to be smaller, nimbler, and more innovative because they don't have an established product to protect. So they're going to challenge the status quo. And so the question is, what do you do as a business owner when you're in that phase? Do you sit back, or do you start challenging your assumptions and trying new things? Because if you don't, your business becomes a dog. And then the growth stopped, and then you start losing market share, and you're like, what happened? The market moved on. There are new products, there's new innovation, and you guys are in the past. So there's a critical decision point right there, is to say, we're not going to become a dog. We're going to take the cash from the cash cow stage, and we're going to innovate and become a startup again. Great example, Netflix. What did Netflix do? Netflix started off, I don't know if folks remember, but you'd go online, you tell them your movie preferences, you pick a bunch of movies, and they would mail you a disc. And then you'd watch the movie, and then when you were done, you'd mail the disc back, and then received your disc, they'd mail you another one. And their whole concept was about this whole late fees thing back in the video rental age, and how do we fight against late fees? And that was their concept, is we need to make late fees go away. So you're going to rent a disc from us, and when you send it back, we'll send you the next one. But they became successful, and they started displacing the traditional rental markets. But they didn't just stay there and get comfortable. They'd made a decision that, hey, what's the next thing coming down the road? And they thought it was going to be streaming, and that you're going to watch video on demand. And you're going to go order your movie online. Half of us didn't have internet speeds fast enough to drive a movie, but they did it anyways. And the internet didn't have the server structure. Didn't care. Figure it out later. But they innovated, and we can all see where Netflix is today versus another company called Blockbuster, which isn't around anymore. And they used to be the king of the video rental space. Hopefully some of us remember Blockbuster, unless we're aging ourselves out. But there used to be this thing called Blockbuster. If not, look it up. It was a thing. And they got their butts handed to them and they're no longer relevant. And then there was this other company, Redbox. You guys remember Redbox? You go and it was at the vending machine, you put $1 in and out comes a video, and then you return the video, and then they were displacing folks. Now where are they at? Gone. It's because they got displaced by streaming. If you're not streaming your videos and you're buying does anybody buy Blu-rays anymore? I know there's some people that do, that don't believe in streaming, they believe in owning the physical media. But generally, that's a thing of the past. So the next thing, why now? Why are you raising capital now? And this is an important part of the assessment. Maybe you remember this slide from my last talk. But think about what's causing you to need to raise capital. Don't just raise the capital. Think about, and here's another message for the talk, you want to match the mission with the money. Match the mission with the money. Why do you need the money? Match the money with that. There are different types of money. So is this a seasonal issue with seasonal products? Or something going on? Is there something going on in the economy? And that's why you need to raise the capital. Are you trying to grow? Your business is doing well, but now it's time to pour in the money and grow faster. Or did something happen operationally to your business? Match the money with the mission. Don't just take money, match it. Next thing we want to talk about, I think maybe you guys remember this from the last presentation, the 6-box grid, where we talked about sources and uses of capital. And this idea of you've got your operating capital for working capital of just paying bills and buying supplies. And then you also have investments in the business, buying equipment, buying equipment, or you can generate cash by selling equipment. And then this whole concept of, you also have sources and uses of cash from how did you finance the business? Taking on loans or equity, or paying back a loan, or paying off a loan, or buying back your equity. And so a lot of folks, hopefully you heard this talk, but again, you want to match the mission with the money. Do you need the money for this? Do you need the money for this? Or are you using the money for that? Why do you need the money? That's going to determine what kind of money you're going to go after. Hopefully you guys may have taken this away from the prior presentation I did on cash flow projections of how do you do a simple cash flow. Here we have an example of a company that started June with $1,000 in the bank, and they seem to have consistent sources of capital. Yeah, they're going to sell a piece of equipment here in July. It's going to give them a little bit of a cash bump. But they're planning to do a research and development project in August. So there's a couple things that you notice here. One is that the company in a regular month is bringing in just a little bit more cash than it spends. Here it's going to get a little extra cash, but then, boom, if it spends that $100,000, it's going to throw itself negative. For me as a CFO, there's two takeaways here. One is they actually need two types of capital. They need a working capital loan, probably a line of credit, just so they can have more cash in the bank, because they're on a typical month, they're spending $37,000. If one of these big invoices doesn't come in, they're going to have a cash flow crunch. So they just need to have a little more money in the bank just to have it, because the road isn't this smooth. There are bumps in the road when you're a business. Things don't move in straight lines. But in addition, they've got this research and development project that may or may not need to be funded by a line of credit. If they're a bigger business and they have a $3 million line of credit, yeah, just throw the $100,000 on your line of credit, don't worry about it. But if you only had a $40,000 line of credit because you're this size business, putting $100,000 on a line of credit makes no sense whatsoever. You're going to do something different to get that capital funded. You're going to fund it a different way. Again, you're going to match the mission with the money. Match the money with the mission. Okay, let's talk about strategy. So we talked about this matching principle. And so one of the things we want to talk about is we understand why we need the money. We understand how much money we need. We understand what phase the business is. Now we can formulate our strategy of what funding options make sense based on this. Lots of different ways to raise capital. My clients are always coming up with new ones, but typically you're going to see one of these three buckets: debt, equity, or other. There are situations where debt and equity are not practical, and you're going to do something different. But for most companies, they're either going to take on debt or they're going to sell some of the equity in the business. There are pros and cons to each of these. With equity, you're not on the hook for the money. You don't have to return the money, but you now have a partner in the business. You've given up some of your control of the business. People aren't going to just hand you money and be like, have fun. It doesn't happen. There's going to be some expectations attached to that money. And typically, they're going to want some say in the business. The cons is they're going to be expecting a liquidity event. Do you eventually sell this business? Do you eventually buy them out? How do they get their money back from this business? And then the other thing is, partner is good. Partner can help you with the business. But partner is also, you have now another set of circumstances, and there are preferences on the business potentially. Debt, the good thing is you have a repayment schedule built into that. We like that. It's very predictable. But now you have a risk of default. If you default, all of a sudden your debt holder gains some power over you, and your future is not as certain. And then you have other things. The big takeaway from this slide is that your past can dictate your future. The situation I see happen a lot is companies take on debt, and then they take on more debt, and then they take on more debt, and then they take on more debt, until everybody's screaming because there's payments that need to be made, and they're not able to pay their bills because everyone wants money. And then they're like, this is easy. We'll just raise capital. Go take on some equity, and that'll help us pay off the debt. Not so simple. Because your debt holder, your equity investor, has expectations. They expect you to take their money and grow the business. They're not coming in to refinance your debt, typically. In addition, in a distressed situation, the equity holders get wiped out and the debt holders take over the company. So a lot of sophisticated investors know this, and they're going to look at your debt, and if your debt is too much, or if they're worried that you're going to have to pay off this debt, they may not want to put that equity in because the equity goes behind the debt. The debt gets paid first in a distressed situation, so now you've got a problem. So think about this concept of your past can dictate your future. I know you needed the money, but there are certain types of loans that you should not be taking. There are certain types of loans that if you take them, the bank will not lend you money. The SBA will not lend you money because you've now taken on a type of debt that they can't get in front of, and they want to. And so thinking about how to structure your debt and how to structure your equity And the fact of what type of money you took today is going to impact what types of money are available to you tomorrow. That's something that I understand. A lot of business owners, you're dealing with the here and now and what's right in front of you and how do we make it to next month? But you may have significantly hurt your company's ability to grow into the future.
Todd,
Yes.
what are some examples of other?
Other. So we talked about crowdsourcing, GoFundMe. But a lot of companies, way back when, 5-10 years ago, people thought crowdsourcing was the thing, where you could go and just get a bunch of small little investors to go put in little amounts of money. What a lot of business owners don't understand about crowdfunding is you have to have a crowd. If you don't have a crowd, it's really hard to crowdfund. But that is something you can do. Another thing that I've seen companies do is advances from customers, also known as gift cards. Or that's another type of crowdfunding is, hey, we're going to go build this thing and you're going to get one of the first ones off the line, but you got to pay up front. So that's another thing. And then another common one is grants. A lot of folks use grants. I found out about a new one that I didn't even know was available called donor advised funds. That's something that I was like, geez, I didn't know that that was something that's available to a company to raise capital, but that is something that's out there.
Does it have to be a nonprofit?
No. No, because these donor advised funds are actually investing, which I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. But, you know, so I'm sure there are tax implications around all of that because it's supposed to be a donation, not an investment. But if you're investing in a fund that's trying to grow its capital, yeah, maybe that's a possibility. Another thing I want you to think about is that not all capital is good capital. You have smart money, dumb money, and then there's bad money. Now, when you're in the moment and you just need money, just raise the capital, right? No. Because ideally, you want smart money. Smart money is going to bring you money and they're going to bring you resources. They're going to have expertise and knowledge. So they're going to be a partner to your business in a good way. They're going to bring stuff to you. They're going to know things. So this could be a professional investor or a PE firm maybe. Then there's just dumb money. Dumb money is just money, and it could be the bank, it could be friends and family. They're not really going to be there and help you try to, you know, hey, I know Todd, he should be your CFO. Or, you know, here's some other people that you should have in the room with you. Let me introduce you to them. That's smart money. They're going to bring people to the table. Your bank may know people, but they may not. They may be very passive about it and just lend you the money and boop. Or friends and family. You know, they're not going to bring anything to the table. I see somebody shaking their head that friends and family. And then you have bad money. Bad money, some investors have ulterior motives. They're not your friend. They're, you know, maybe, I don't know if people remember loan sharks. They're still out there. You have unscrupulous people. They just want to get into your business and do something strange with your business. And money is a way to get into your business. I know at the time it seemed like a good idea, but if you take on bad money, that could be a problem. So part of the strategy is once you've identified where you think you're going to get the money from, is getting into their head. Understanding what's their perspective. And understanding that your investment isn't the only thing that they're looking at. There's a market for money, supply and demand based on that type. There's risk and reward from their perspective. The cost of capital, that's something that a lot of new concept to some business owners is that money costs money. The investor has deal flow and a strike zone. Certain investors only like to invest in certain things. Some investors only invest in real estate. So I'm going to go bring them a software startup, and they're like, we only invest in real estate. It doesn't make sense to them. But another investor may not invest in real estate. We only like to invest in AI companies or something. And then buyer beware. Again, what is their concerns and what are your concerns about the fit there between what are they interested in, what are they really trying to get to, and where are you trying to get to, and do we have a good match? Okay. Tips for success as we come into our conclusion here, talking about strategy. The ocean is vast, and it is full of sharks. There's a lot of bad money out there. So I want you to think about, how many people have gotten an email saying, hey, I've got capital to invest in your business? They've emailed you. They're reaching out to you. Let's see, what kind of sensitive information are we going to share with them? Driver's licenses, social security numbers, EINs, addresses, customer lists, financials, tax returns. Oh, this is all typical stuff that you would share with an investor, but this is stuff that if you share with the wrong person who's just pretending to be interested in your company, ooh, that's bad. That's really bad. And then what if they're really going to put money into your company, but they really don't have your best interests at heart? We all know who Gordon Gekko is, right? We're going to buy your business so we can slice it up, dice it up, lay off half the people, and take over your business and sell off the pieces. They're investors, but maybe they're not the right investor for you. So know that stuff. Again, not all capital is good capital. Another big takeaway is for every rule that I've given you today, or I may give you tomorrow, there are exceptions. The market for raising capital is extremely fragmented. We're seeing lots of individuals get into it now, where they have a business and like, hey, I want to invest in somebody else's business. And so there's a lot of folks now, it's not just traditional banks and venture capital. There's a lot of individual investors and investor groups out there. And so I want you to think about that they make the rules. And you can, if you recall back, we were talking about Myanmar and Brazil and cicadas and sesame seeds. And what does that have to do with your capital raise? Well, for that particular investor, that's where he was at, and that's where his line of thinking was. And so there are going to be exceptions. But again, remember, does anyone, I might be dating myself here. Okay, some of you. So the due diligence process. When you get to the due diligence process, it's a two-way street. The banks talk about know your customer. I propose that you know your investor. Where did the money come from? There are certain places on this planet that if the money came from there, you don't want the money because there are strings attached. Know where the money's coming from. You don't want to accidentally be laundering money or, cleaning money for somebody. You don't even know you're doing it. But know where the money's coming from. Also, find out what kind of clowns they are. Get references. Who have they invested in the past? And talk to those folks. What were they like when they were on your board? What were they like to have as investors in your company? Were they well behaved? Were they cooperative? Were they helpful? Or did they split the board? And all of a sudden, your board wasn't so friendly no more. I've had to deal with this where you come into the room and there's 5 people on the board. You have the CEO's one of them. And you got these 2 investors over here, and they want to take the company in that direction. And you got these 2 who want to sink the company so they can buy it for 30 cents on the dollar. It's crazy. So know your investor. Finally, show me the money. You want to understand that once you get your money, it's just starting. Then you're really going to need the fractional CFO and the attorney, because you just complicated your life. You now have a partner who has expectations that you're going to produce financials for them every quarter, every month. Or maybe there are loan covenants that there are certain things that you're not allowed to do, because you have to maintain this much accounts receivable based on the size of your loan. You can't sell certain pieces of equipment because they've collateralized something. There's strings attached to this money. You're going to have to up your game. And so that means that you might have to bring in extra accounting and finance help. And some more tips. When you need money, ask for advice. When you need advice, ask for money. That one actually holds true. Go for the smart money first. Obviously, the smart money is going to bring you resources. It's not just money. They're going to help you with your business. That's ideal. It doesn't happen every time. FOMO. We all know what FOMO is, fear of missing out. Investors are big on FOMO. A lot of the VCs back when would get very jealous of the other VCs of missing out on certain investment opportunities. So this is a psychology game that you can play, because the investment decision is actually an emotional decision backed up with logic. But it's not a logical decision. A lot of the investors are emotional, so you can use that to kind of encourage them and get yourself in a situation where multiple investors are competing to invest in your company. That is the situation you want to be in, is to have this competitive situation, so more than one investor is coming in, and now you can play them off against each other a little bit, because no one wants to miss out. Another thing, again, suboptimal raises can cripple your company. Is this the only time you're ever going to raise capital, or you're going to have to come back to the well periodically as your company grows to get more capital? Understanding that you want to plan that out, because if you take on certain types of capital, it's going to close doors further down the road. What are the next steps coming up? So these are the things that we're not going to discuss today, but this is where you would go next, is we talk about your pitch. Why do you want to raise the money? What's the story behind your capital raise? Even if you go to a bank and you just fill out a standard credit application, they're going to ask, what are you using the money for? They want to know, because they want to match the money to the mission, just like you do. Due diligence prep. Like I said, you should be doing due diligence on your potential investors. They're going to be doing due diligence on you. If you didn't prepare for that due diligence, it's not going to be a fun exercise. Project management. Raising capital is actually a project unto itself. People don't understand that it's not something you do once and you're done. You build a whole process around it. And then, again, once you get the money, congratulations, but you just signed up for more things, because your investor now has expectations of you. And that's the post-raise expectations. Questions?
Great. The key words I think were good out there, because like UCC, when you see that, that is like a lean position that we're kind of, the banks are looking to do, and that could affect you later. To getting a traditional bank loan. So like I've had instances where we go, like everything looks good, but you signed over your UCC first lien for this computer or whatever it is that you had, and now I can't place my lien, and we now have a problem to get to the closing table we have to kind of overcome. So being in front of that and understanding that definitely helps.
Yeah, there's certain types of debt that you take on and it shuts down the bank and they can't come in.
Back during COVID, some kind of loans, like, was that good, bad?
So PPP loan is an SBA loan, and what that means is it's senior debt. You can take on another PPP loan, or I'm sorry, you can take on an SBA loan if you have your EIDL. A lot of companies now still have the EIDLs. Some companies even still have those PPP loans if they haven't had them forgiven. And a lot of investors have seen these loans and they're comfortable with them. They understand that that's senior debt. But the interest rate on that EIDL is really freaking low. You never want to, if you have an EIDL, don't pay it off early. It's really good debt. It's very healthy for your business. And a lot of lenders are going to see that, but those don't generate the UCCs. The debt that I'm talking about are these merchant cash advances. You call them up, oh yeah, we'll have money in your account in 24 hours, 48 hours. There's not even an interest rate. It's a factor. They make their money on the way in, you give them a bank account, and they're hitting that bank account every week or every month, whether there's money or not, and they're filing that UCC. And all of a sudden, once that's done, if you've taken a merchant cash advance, that UCC gets filed. You're no longer eligible for SBA, and you're no longer eligible for most traditional bank money. They won't touch it, because they have no collateral because you just signed it all away. That's what that UCC did.
What was the acronym you just used? EDL?
EIDL.
What's that stand for?
What was it?
Debt.
I forget what I mean, it was what, 5-6 years ago? It was for the COVID loans?
Yeah, I mean, I know the.
It was the emergency government loans to help. It's basically a 30-year fixed mortgage on your business. And it was like with a 3% interest rate. It was super friendly money.
With the PPP, one that are out there are 1%.
I mean, they're super low interest rates. So you're not going to pay that off early, but the bank is used to seeing that on your balance sheet, and they're not going to feel threatened by that debt.
Stands for Economic Injury Disaster Loan.
There it was.
Run by SBA.
There it is, yeah. It's been so many years, I forgot what the dang acronym is, but you just put that on your balance sheet because a lot of businesses have them. So again, some takeaways. Raise ready beats raise fast. Match the money to the mission. And not all capital is good capital. If you take those 3 things away from this talk, you've gotten a lot out of this, because that stuff will help you as you go through your capital raise. Lancaster and Hall, we have 3 main things that we're interested in helping you with in your business: cash flow projections, budget development, and capital raise readiness. If you or any business owners that you know are interested in help with any of these areas, call me.